Welcome to another exciting episode of Only Time Can Tell. I'm your host, Ken. And before we begin, don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. So therefore you get notifications every time we have a new video, as well as it also helps us to grow the channel. So please don't forget to do that. All right. I have a question for you guys. What happens when you start out as a young kid wanting to be a baseball player, and then you turn around and wind up writing a book? That's just exactly what happened to the gentleman next to me, childhood friend of mine, Rahiem Wilson, who wrote the book, Roll with Ra. Great book. Brother, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming out.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I read this, man, and yeah, I tell you, this book, man, was amazing. Very easy read. Couldn't put it down whatsoever, man. It was just,
Thank you.
Like the stories, I'm sitting up there like, damn, I'm surprised you still here. How you able to even tell that story? But yeah, for our viewers, tell us who's Rahiem Wilson, man, and how'd you even come up with the idea of putting together this book?
Well, Roll with Ra, that was what I used to be. I used to be a car service. I was a driver. I refer to myself as Uber before Uber. We were like a Uber transportation for the hood. When I was out there driving folks around, things were happening to me, and I was like, yo, this is amazing. If I have to share this story, like, this isn't just for me. I can't die without the world knowing some of the things I went through. I called it Roll with Ra because my name is Rahiem, so everyone always called me Ra for short. And when people called me for a ride, they were literally rolling with me, so Roll with Ra. But what started out as a car service eventually grew into a much bigger vision. I started a publishing and production company, also titled Roll with Ra Publishing and Productions, because these stories will one day be translated onto film and then be seen on the screen near you or device near you. Other people who may have a vision of writing, because I believe we all have a story to tell. So other people who may have a vision of writing, I'm going to help them tell their story and get it out there. Because yes, we all have unique experiences. We've all had instances in our life which, like, it's almost too crazy to actually have happened, but it actually did. And if you're blessed to have gotten through those experiences like I did, I owe it to everyone just to tell that story.
Right. And the one thing that I appreciated about this book, right, is how you even got started. You had mentioned that you had lost a job.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're talking about way back when, in the 90s, when you, in order to find a job, there was no internet, or the internet wasn't nearly as vast as it is.
Yeah, it wasn't
today.
accessible to us. Like
Right.
that.
So it was just like, you had to go get the New York Times or whatever on Sunday, go through the want ads. So you lost your job, and you're sitting up there talking to a friend. He sees that you're down on his hot summer June day, and he put the bug in your ear, like, yo, you got this vehicle, whatever the case may be. What you sad about, man? You have an opportunity.
Yeah.
And initially you thought what? That he was telling you?
Yeah, I thought he was trying to tell me that I was supposed to be selling my truck or something like that just to get some money to pay some bills. And I'm like, yo, bro, I'm not going to sell my truck, man. You're wilding. And he's like, nah. I'm part of an underground base. See, underground base is, we were unlicensed car services. So in your neighborhood, whatever city you're in, you have these little cars. Some people call them system Jeeps, black cars, something like that. But we weren't licensed by the Taxi and Limousine Commission. So therefore, we made our own rules pretty much. Most of the vehicles in the base were luxury. It was a high-end luxury vehicle. I drove an Expedition at the time.
Right.
That was in '98. That was '98 that story happened. That was the '98 Expedition. And eventually, when Candy came around, Candy, that's my vehicle now, the legend, where all those stories happened in. She's a Suburban. But other cars on the bases, you have Benz, you have BMWs, we have Hummers. So you call those for luxury cars and you pay a luxury price. But a majority of people that call the base to be able to afford those prices, they were kind of, should we say, on the other side of the law 98% of the time, maybe 90% of the time.
And yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off. Let's also put things in perspective too. The reason why, because remember, I've always said, and I always preach on this channel, if you want to be successful, find a need and cater to it. And the reason why these these underground bases existed is because at one point in the 90s, taxi cabs wasn't stopping for people of color. They weren't stopping for minorities.
They wouldn't come to the hood.
Right. They wouldn't come to the hood.
They wouldn't come uptown.
You know, like, you know, if you was on the east side of Manhattan, they weren't going past 96th Street.
Yeah.
And maybe on the west side, maybe 110th Street or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But so, you know, I just wanted to I wanted to throw that out there just so our viewers can understand, like, you know, because it's probably hard these days when you can basically do everything on your phone or whatever, and Uber normalize that whole experience. Yeah. You know, why would we?
But see, a lot of things that you have to understand is that a lot of my customers didn't want, even to this day, they wouldn't use an app because some of the moves, most of the moves that they're making, you don't want a digital footprint of those moves. You don't want anyone knowing. It's the old school way of moving around to get things done.
Right. And
when you call an OJ, we would call OJs. We call an OJ driver. You can pretty much talk to them and negotiate a price and go anywhere from here to California if the price is agreed to.
Right. So with those, now how was trips basically? How did you figure out what trips to take or, or like you just mentioned, you could go from here to California or whatever. Like how would that, you know?
Well, when people would call the base, it was just like calling any other cab company. You tell them where you were going and what you were trying to do. And then the dispatcher would then throw the call out over the air. And then once that call got thrown out, all of the drivers had the cab radios in their car. And if someone threw out I remember one night I was driving by Yankee Stadium and the call came out, someone was going to Maryland. At 2 o'clock in the morning, he had to get down to Maryland. That's like a $400, $500 call plus tolls. The rate would be based upon, is dictated by the base, but then once you get to know your passengers, you can negotiate different prices because at the end of the day, you're working for yourself. Right. It's you and your vehicle. You pay a little fee to the base to be part of the base, but it is you as a person, your vehicle deciding to go wherever to do whatever. Right. After all, you're an adult and you make your own decisions. Now, the consequences of those decisions, you'll have to live with. That's important to remember.
Right, right. So when you was driving or whatever, what would have been considered a good day and what would have been considered a bad day?
Well,
in terms of finances.
Okay. Well, this is let's put a time frame on this. This is 1998 was the summer when I learned it with the expedition, and then 2002 was when we started full time with this vehicle right here that story was written about. So in 2002, on a Friday or Saturday, the minimum was $200 a day, minimum. I would not go in the house without hitting those marks. Anytime I went in the street, any other day, was $100 to come home with after your gas money and whatever snack money I may have spent when I was out. Okay. So you're talking easy making $800, $900 a week, working 3 days, 4 days. Okay. So who went work from, say, Wednesday to Sunday, make like $700, $800 tax-free?
Not that you made that, right? Because we don't want Uncle Sam.
Oh, this was, I'm just saying. Hypothetically speaking, who wouldn't want to do that? I'm not saying I did that, of course.
Just had to get that out there.
Yeah, of course.
So obviously, you become a cab driver. You experience tremendous amount of stories. So we obviously know what inspired you to write this book. But why don't you share with our viewers, how long did that process take you?
Well, the majority of the project took about 5 years. It began originally and with just the outline, just a checklist of different people and places. I didn't start writing a book because I didn't want to just write a book and then just have it not be published or just not published the right the correct way. So it took me out, and in 2002, I wrote about 12 pages just to prove to myself, if I wanted to write this book, this is what it would look like. But I didn't really start writing full time till like 10 years later, which was 2012. Right. And strangely enough, because I had taken a regular job, and it was a manual labor job, and I felt as though I was worth much more than that. I know as though that I took taking a job because I was happy to have a job to take care of my family, but at the same time, I have a jewel in my head. I just have to get it out.
Right.
So I dedicated myself to writing, and it took the next 5 years, from 2012 to 2017, to finish writing. I wrote 860 pages, which I broke down into 3 volumes. Volume 1 is what you're holding right there.
Okay.
Volume 2 was going through the editing phases and rereads, putting the finishing touches on it. Release date on that has yet to be determined. We'll get into that later.
Right.
But yeah, it's a process.
Right.
That's just the writing process. And once you're done writing, that's really just the beginning. A friend of mine said that. When I was finally done writing, I'll never forget this. That summer 2017, I spent the whole summer popping bottles of rosé.
Really?
Yeah, I felt as though we were celebrating because it took me so long to write. When in actuality, I had not edited, I had not marketed, I had not taken pictures, I had not built a website, I had not done any of the things that it actually takes to be a successful author. I was just exhaling.
Right.
Because I had finally gotten through the writer's process. Because the writer's process, writer's block, it's a real thing.
Okay.
It's a real thing.
So you said you started, in 2002 and you did 12 pages?
Just to show I can do it.
Right. Okay. And then when was the next point where it was just like, all right, this is what I'm going to do?
2012.
2012.
After working a year,
Okay.
for someone else. And I said, working for someone else is not the future. That's never going to get us where we want to go. It's not going to secure our future the way it needs to be secured.
Right.
So I said, I'm going to try this. In addition to working for someone else, I still work for someone else.
Right. And that's, you just dropped a very, very important gem. And that's also another thing that I like to preach, is that when life becomes uncomfortable, that's when people start to make change. So the fact that you were saying I was working at this 9 to 5 and I wasn't really enjoying it, it almost seems like that's
the push.
That was there purposely to kind of be like, no, let's get on it.
Yeah.
Let's get on it.
Yeah.
You said you wanted to do this. Let's go. Let's go. You don't have any excuses. I'm going to keep making it uncomfortable and more uncomfortable until you actually sit down and do it. So, like I've said to you previously, I'm always impressed with someone who, sets out and says, okay, this is what I want to do. This is my goal. Yeah. And here's my goal. Now, granted, we know that there was a lot of work, a lot of revisions that went into this. But the point of the matter is, you still sat up there and was just like, yo, I'm going to write my book. And here it is. I'm holding the book in my hand.
Yes, it still kind of sends chills down my spine sometimes.
Right.
When I see my book somewhere, or when I go online and I Google me and I see different places I'm at and then people ordering the book, and then when people actually get their hands on it and they're excited and like, oh, you autographed it for me, and they post for their picture. Can I get a picture with the author? And I still don't really consider myself an author. I've been doing this for so many years. I was made into this. Like when you walk in and who you are, it's something for everybody else, but for you, you're just being who you naturally are. So I listen to that, but we're not at our final destination, so I don't really hear it. It's just static right now. I don't really hear it.
Right. But see, the one thing that I also appreciate and I want to share with our viewers too is the mark of a man is someone who's able to make a contribution to society. Right? That's what separates the men from the boys. Not someone that just sits up there, talks, I wish, one day. You got to actually push the pedal to the metal and actually get it done. This is a very, very big move, and it's very, very inspirational, especially considering that, like I said, this all basically started back from one day in June when you lost your job in construction and was like, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Back then, you sitting up there, all I'm trying to figure out is how I'm going to pay the bills. Yeah. Let alone, imagine if somebody would have told you, 30 years from now, you're going to actually write a book about this. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That probably would have blew your mind. Like, write a book. Like, well, I'm trying to pay this phone bill.
You touched on a good point there, because it's important to remember whenever life throws you something, it's for a reason. Right. You may not understand the reason for right now, but just sit tight. nothing happens by accident. Even the bad things that happen, quote unquote bad things, one, they're wake up calls, and they're forcing you. How they say, it takes pressure to make a diamond.
Right, right.
If life don't give you that pressure, then you don't dig down deep. If you don't dig down deep, you'll never find what's within. If everything is all cushy, everyone's enjoying the ride, then you're never gonna really dig and become who you want to be, who you're supposed to be.
You know, and it's funny because one of the things that I had to learn too is there's no such a thing as bad experiences. It's just favorable and unfavorable.
Yeah.
You know, because you're gonna learn
regardless.
Either way. You know, it's just I find it's easier, and it may not seem ideal, but it's easier to get that lesson when the situations are unfavorable, as opposed to if everything is going good.
You don't learn.
Right. You know, it's very easy to rely on the ego. Like,
that's why you gotta stay. That's why you gotta stay humble. Because if you don't stay humble, then life will humble you. Right. So because you become too full of yourself, and then when it's like a balloon, you up there, and then when it comes, pop. That's a long trip down to the earth.
Right. So now, as an author, how are you selling these books or whatever?
Well, it's the best way to sell them is sometimes I'll have I released in the summertime.
Okay.
The summertime is great because there's always every weekend there's something happening. Someone's having a barbecue, a birthday party. So I would just pull up on the scene, and I would just be like, yo, my book release, and I'm selling 8 to 10 books at every hand to hand. Right. But obviously we're available online on my website, which is the title Roll with Ra, ROLLWITHRAH.com, and that's my primary means of moving the books.
Right.
But they're also available on all major retailers, Barnes and Noble, Amazon. In several different countries and libraries and bookstores across the country.
So, if you don't mind me asking, where are some of your buyers? Are you buying? I mean, obviously your friends or family are supporting you or whatever, but are there anybody outside of your friends and family that bought books that really made you be like, wow, my reach is that far?
Well, that's the good thing about social media. When one of your friends buys a book, you can then tag him, and all of his friend list will see that he bought a book.
Right.
And I got some sales from people, friends of friends.
Right.
One of my favorite customers is a 59-year-old white woman in West Virginia. She's a huge Roll with Ra fan. She likes my post. It's not even Roll with Ra related. Just my personal Rahiem Wilson post.
Wow.
She's there.
From West Virginia.
From West Virginia.
Wow.
I had to look at her to see if she was a real person. I had to dig into the page. Is this woman real? Is this a bot? Is this the ops? Who's liking me and watching me?
What about international? Have you received any international?
Yes, I got an order from Japan. That was crazy. That was.
Wow.
I met this guy in a writers group on Facebook. Again, social media works if you're really using it the right way.
Right.
We were in a writers group, and but I looked at shipping to Japan. It would have cost me about $37. But the funny part was, I tried to take the address because the Chinese characters, the Japanese characters.
Right.
Okay, I took the address to the post office and said, can you send it there? They said, we can't read that. We can't make that. You got to translate. I said, okay. So he wound up buying the ebook.
Okay.
Which I'll get a smidgen because in case you don't know, I know ebooks are very popular, but the author doesn't get much from an ebook. But that's okay because there's more important things than money.
Right.
It's getting your name out there, building the brand.
Contribution, right.
You know what I'm saying? Getting your word out there, getting your message across, letting your name be heard.
Now, what about audiobooks? Is that in the works for you? Or?
No, I kind of shy away from audiobooks because, again, audiobooks are relatively inexpensive, and it's not the same as having a book. See, if something happens to technology, then the audiobook goes away.
Right.
But that book will be there after the doomsday. The books will still be here.
I mean, and that's interesting because I know a lot of people, because, I guess, life gets in the way or what have you. So a lot of people don't necessarily have the time to sit down to read as much as they would. But I know a lot of people who are really, really big on, when they're commuting, to and from work or wherever they're going. they get in audiobooks or whatever because that's their way of.
I've heard that. But I'm from a generation when you had to have it was a reading hour. Like after 1 hour a day of reading, because it calms the brain. Right. It's a relationship with the page. It triggers different parts of your brain to read as opposed to actually listening to someone dictating it to you. Right. I know it's easier and more convenient, but just to take a little bit of time out of your day and just read. We do it now. You read articles on social media. You read blogs. You read articles about your favorite whoever. You read about your sports teams. You read injury reports. You read about all these other things. Just take some time to read a book.
Okay. So let me ask you, who would you say your intended market is for this particular book?
I'm glad you asked that question because I get that question often.
Okay.
And my reply is always, I don't have an intended market because different aspects of the book appeal to different people.
Right.
I've had teenagers who, kids don't like to read anything. He's my doctor's son. He's an 18-year-old freshman at Morehouse College. Right. He read the entire book.
Right. Yeah.
Cover to cover in like a matter of 2 weeks. And he's an 18-year-old kid. These kids don't read anything. They play video games. They talk to their girlfriends. They're on social media. He took the time to read the book. I've had 78-year-old retirees love the book. Right. I've had my middle-aged Caucasian woman in West Virginia loves the book. Right. I've had brothers who've been incarcerated love the book. So it's a wide range. It appeals to different aspects of it because it's more than just cartels.
Right.
We get into like some of the background of New York City, why certain of our historical neighborhoods are quite historical, because if no one tells you the history around you, you'll never know that you're actually
context,
in historical grounds.
Right.
So we tell you why Sugar Hill in Harlem is called Sugar Hill, why Hell's Kitchen in New York and Midtown is called Hell's Kitchen. We talk about the Village downtown. It's like a virtual tour of New York City. In addition to, we get into the moralistic implications behind a lot of decisions that both I made and that my passengers made while we were out there in those streets for over that decade plus that we were making those moves.
Right. Now I believe you said that, you was out there during shortly after 9/11.
Yeah. 9/11 triggered my second return into the business with Candy, the black truck that we have now.
Right. Okay.
Like after 9/11, I was in construction again, and our industry took a hit. And about 6 months later, I was let go the following summer.
Right.
And I was faced with, at that point, my family had gotten bigger, and my bills had gotten bigger.
Right.
And I had the same choice I had to make 4 years prior. Right. This time it was like, but I knew what I was going to do this time because I had an idea that I knew could work from that little brief time I did it in '98.
Right. Now, did you find, because, and it's funny because I used to talk to different street vendors, like shortly after 9/11, excuse me. And one of the things that they used to say was they found that the city had changed. It wasn't like the same,
Yeah, the energy was like sapped out of New York.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, did you find that to be the case too?
Well, but here's the thing. Ironically enough, because of where I worked, we was uptown. We was in the hood. Right. So in the hood was the hood. The hood wasn't that affected by 9/11.
You know it's so funny because I never forget experiencing that. I never forget experiencing that whole 9/11 thing. And I was, at the time, I was down on 10th Street when I saw the towers come down.
Yeah.
And it was the most surreal experience I've ever seen. And obviously there was no public transportation. I remember walking home from 10th Street to about 96th Street. And from 10th Street to 96th Street, all I saw was like despair, people crying. It was crazy. Then once I crossed, and this is 96th Street on the east side. Yeah. Once I crossed 96th Street and got into Spanish Harlem, it was like it was a completely normal day.
Like nothing happened.
I was sitting up there baffled, like.
And it's not to say that people uptown in Harlem didn't care.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure you had people that were impacted, and we all lost people everywhere, so that was horrific.
Right.
However, the average person that's on the street in the hood was like, yo, where we going to get this bag from?
Right.
What moves we making tonight? It wasn't this sense of sorrow, because honestly, people in the hood don't really feel like a part of America. They feel abandoned by America.
All right. So, being a first-time author, would you say that were there any pitfalls that you had to endure?
Oh, well, yeah, like with anything that you get into, you have to really learn it to make sure that you don't make a bad step, a misstep, because there are a lot of missteps. Right. I like to say that the publishing industry is worse than the music industry, which is notoriously known for raping their artists, for lack of a better phrase. Well, the publishing industry, they actually make the music industry look good. Wow. And they take advantage of a person's hunger. So whenever, like any situation, whenever you're hungry, you're not making wise choices because you're acting out of desperation. And in life, you can never act out of desperation because that's when you panic. Right. So you have to take your time and do your homework. Now, when you say pitfalls, when it comes to publishing, you have two routes you can go. You can go the self-publishing route. Self-publishing means that, or you can go traditional publishing. Traditional publisher is, as you know, with a publishing house, and they like your project, they buy your manuscript, and once they buy it, then it's theirs. And then they're free to do whatever they want.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So it's not like, you're a part owner or whatever.
No. If you take on a traditional publishing house and let them publish you, they own your project. Because they're going to give you like an advance. Right. And then you get your advance, and then they get the rights to your book. And the reason they get the rights to your book is because they do the paperwork. Okay. See, like anything, whoever owns the deed owns the property. Right. Well, in publishing, the deed is that little barcode right here. That's the ISBN number. Right. This is ISBN 97, etc. That is the deed. So whoever registers the barcode, the ISBN number, and not the barcode because they're two different things. The ISBN number and the barcode, two different things. But whoever registers that is the person that owns the project. Okay. And when you go through publishing companies and they do all the paperwork for you, yeah, your name may be on it, but they will be the one who controls the project, meaning if it ever does become a big thing on the big screen, right, they will get that money because they own the project, even though it's your story because you entered into that deal, which is why you have to be careful before you sign anything. Wow. Read it 5 times. So, because I know in the record industry, they have this clause where, like, after 35 years, you can get your master's or whatever. Mm. Is that something? No. So once I register that product, volume 1, and under that ISBN number, it's mine forever. Right, it's yours forever. But if you went through a traditional publisher, if they registered it, they own it forever. Oh wow. Okay. You don't get it back. Wow. So it's important. You buy it from a company called Bowker, Bowker, Bowker. That's the only official distributor of ISBN numbers in the United States. Okay. Any other thing you hear from any other publishing company, and I'm sorry, I wanted to get into something. I mentioned traditional publishers, but the other route is called self-publishing. Right. Self-publishing is you invest in yourself, and you are responsible for putting it out. You are the one who makes the decisions on cover, length, photos, no photos. When's it ready to go? When's it not ready to go? Right. You can either do that yourself or you can hire a quote-unquote self-publishing company that will do all of the work for you. But again, just like with the traditional publishing house, the self-publishing company will register your product and they will own your product. But the worst part about this is you pay the self-publishing company to do all of your paperwork. So they're getting money on both ends. Yeah, they're getting money to set you up and get your book out because you didn't have the time to do it yourself. Right. And after that, whatever book sales come, they will get a majority of the product. Wow. See, traditional publishers take upwards of 90%. Wow. That means you as an author get like 10%. Of your work? Of your work. Wow. Okay. All right. So what would you say was, so for a self-publishing author, what could they look to, if they wanted to basically do their own book, what are they looking to possibly spend? Well, putting out their own project. Well, it's 2 ways of doing it. I believe that all authors should have a brand. They should have their own website where most sales go through. That way they get the lion's share of their money. Right. But to have a brand, you have to have a logo. To have a logo, you have to have a a name. You have to get these things copywritten. You have to get these things. There are a whole list of things. That's why people go to easy route, quote unquote easy route,
right.
and just go to Amazon or any of these other companies that pay someone to do it. Because going the long route, it can be expensive. I myself, I'm Roll with Rob Publishing and Productions because I have a vision of filming episodes of these stories one day, and it will bring it to a screen near you. And because of that, I needed to have a company so that when I partner with other companies, I'm partnering with a company as opposed to just coming in like, I'm Rahiem Wilson, I have a book.
Right.
Roll with Rob Publishing and Productions is a completely different, is an entity on it to itself,
right.
where we can then help and guide other people to follow in my footsteps.
Right.
So I wound up spending about $8,000 before I even sold one book.
Okay.
And that was just through the editing and the photographer and the web design and
right.
the cover design and the cover layout. And like I said, when I said editor, there are different types of editors. You need a line editor. They worry about punctuation. You need a content editor who focuses on flow and rhythm of the story. Right. You need what's called a metadata editor. Their job is to focus on the keywords, make sure you have enough keywords so you hit on the Google search engines.
Oh, wow.
And then there are like 4 more types of editors, 4 or 5 more that you can go into.
Right.
So it can be costly. That's why a lot of people don't go this route. They would simply pay a few $1,000s to a company just to have a book in their hand and have
right.
their book signing moment and have a book on their bookshelf. It will look good, but on the long term,
right.
you're not going to really see your dream fulfilled to its full potential by not taking the time to go through the steps like you need to.
Well, in terms of generating the revenue, but if your goal was, I just want to get a book out.
Oh, well, yeah.
Right.
Well, if you're not in it to like actually make a company of it or like trying to get like really see larger dividends, then yeah, right. go the Amazon route and right. everything they promise you will true. The Amazon program is called Amazon KDP. You can upload your work to KDP. They will not edit it. Whatever you upload, they will print. They give you a template. You have about 8 to 10 covers you can choose, generic covers. Pick one that you feel that suits your book, and whatever you upload it will be available print on demand, and you'll be available on Amazon.
Oh, wow.
But if you go through that Amazon KDP program, it's important to remember, folks, your book cannot be distributed to anyone else but Amazon exclusively. You can buy what's called author's copies, which are like a discounted, so they're going to give you a discount on buying your own book. So then you can then turn around and sell that book to make a couple of dollars.
Right.
But yeah, you're exclusively on Amazon. Needless to say, I did not go
right.
through. I'm available on Amazon, but I did not go through Amazon. I went through a different distribution route.
Right, right. So have you, since your book has been out, have you gone on any book signings or?
Well, I partnered with a couple of friends, a couple of entrepreneurs I know at their events. So at their events, I've been able to move some units and get the name out there and stuff like that. I'm in contact with Barnes & Noble, but the problem is, like, everyone who would have bought my book in the New York City area come to a book signing, they already bought the book. so they jumped at the chance. So they didn't let me put it together.
Right.
So perhaps, for volume 2, which is coming out, I don't know when, but look for it soon.
Okay. And you said you're working on you're working on editing that now?
Yeah, volume 2 is being edited right now.
Okay.
Being edited now. I was at an editing session this morning in the Bronx before I came here to this interview.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm putting in work on a Sunday.
Okay.
Working my other job. My regular job is Monday through Friday, and then Roll with Rob is after hours, Monday through Friday, and weekends. That's how it is when you work for yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And like I said, I really, really enjoyed this, man. Like I said, I found this book very, very hard to put down. The stories were very, very engaging. For a minute there, I'm like, how is he going to get through this?
Can I share something with you real quick, though?
Yeah, go ahead,
my reader, he just got finished reading it, and he said, believe it or not, it's actually a little better than volume 1.
Volume 2?
Volume 2. And when he said that, it made me feel good because as I was writing, I became a better writer as the project got more involved.
Right.
So by the time I reached volume 2 part of the book, I had kind of figured it out from the beginning of it.
Right.
So it got easy to me. My voice, I kind of found my voice.
Right.
And to hear an outside person read it and say, it's actually better than the first one. And everyone has loved the first one.
Right.
that's exactly what I need to hear. That's why it's like, okay, well, we on to something here.
Right, and that's what I was going to ask you too. It's just like, you know, when you was writing this or whatever, like, what was your end goal? Like, how do you know, or when would you feel like, all right, yeah, I did everything that I stated to do that I wanted to do. Like, this is it for me.
All right. Well, you mean as far as like the stories?
Well, as far as you obviously your experiences created the stories. So, like, I guess when would you know that, all right, roll with Rye, yo, this is it, yo, this.
All right. Well, I just stopped writing. I could have kept writing.
Right.
But I had more stories to tell about the different people in there.
Right.
I just like it's a chapter in there called "Fo the Good Luck Charm."
Yeah.
Fo the Good Luck Charm. He was this white kid from Midtown. He's a teenager when we met, and he was my passenger for about 12 or 13 years.
Wow.
And over that 12 or 13 year span, and he would call me about 3 or 4 times a week.
Right.
You know how many stories that I have with Fo?
Yeah.
I could have gone on and on and on, but I was like, this isn't a book just about Fo,
Right.
so you got to cut it off at some point.
Right.
So when we start producing things on the screen, and there's a particular character that we happen to like more, oh yeah, we have more material to write about that character.
Right. Okay.
We just had to we had
kind
to
of
cut
like
it
a
off.
spin-off type of.
Yeah. He could actually become a series all up to himself.
Right.
Because he's that intriguing as a character.
Right.
Because those people in that book, and that's the important thing to understand about this, these are true tales. That's why it took me so many years to write it. I always used to tell people, if I was making stuff up, I could have been finished writing this book.
Right.
Anybody can sit here and tell a tale, but no, these are true tales from the underground.
See, and that's interesting too, because when you think of people riding in cabs, we just think of that as being just like a transactional one-time thing. We don't think of necessarily you forging relationships.
Oh, well, when you're with a person, we rent by the hour.
Right. Okay.
So they normally say, let me get you for 2 hours.
Okay.
3 hours.
Okay.
Or I want to go to Six Flags Great Adventure.
Right.
So I want you to take me to Six Flags in Jersey. I want you to stay in the park with me. I'll pay your way to come into the park. You stay. When we eat, you eat. When we buy something extra, we'll buy the extra ticket for you.
Okay.
And then we're going to hang out for the day. You mind for the day. How much is that?
So you basically like a rent-a-friend.
Yeah.
Right. So there was a lot of fringe benefits.
Oh, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I went jet skiing. My passengers took me jet skiing. Like...
While working.
Yeah. I was on the clock. Like I negotiated a rate. We went out to Long Island. He gave us lunch afterwards. We had pizza.
Be like, now listen, if you want me to go jet skiing with you,
that's an extra 25, man. Because I'm risking my clothes gonna get wet.
Yeah, and I need a new wardrobe, so you got to go to the mall afterward.
That wasn't that bad, man. It wasn't that bad.
All right. So, with the release of your book, have your family and friends supported you at all?
Well, I would have to say, for the most part, the turnout has been positive. I would say about 70% of my family and friends have shown up.
Right.
Now, the other 30%, I don't know what they're waiting for, but you know what? I'm like McDonald's, man. I built it. At some point, you are going to come get a burger.
Right.
It may not be the first time.
Right.
It may not be the second volume.
Okay.
When you see I'll come out with the third, and I have the 3-book set, the nice leather-bound edition with the color photos,
right.
You'd be like, he's still doing it.
He's still doing it.
Let me purchase this
I gotta
product.
respect that.
So whenever they come around, they come around. But you know what, though, Kenny? An important thing is support doesn't have to be just purchasing the book.
Right.
It could be as simple as sharing the post.
Right.
Maybe you're not a reader, but maybe someone on your timeline is a reader. Maybe you don't know anyone in marketing. Maybe you don't know anyone in film, but maybe someone on your timeline does.
Right.
So you'll be surprised, but a simple share of a friend of yours post can open up doors, and you never know where it could lead.
Right.
I myself am an elephant. I will never forget people who aided and assisted in this journey,
Right.
and those that chose to stay silent.
Right. I got you. So I would imagine overall the feedback has been pretty positive.
Yes.
Have you received any constructive criticism as far as?
Well, the one thing that people mentioned was that we seem to smoke a lot of weed. and honestly, that wasn't my fault.
Right.
See,
Right.
I was just the driver, okay?
Right.
And I am a marijuana user before marijuana became legal.
Right.
Because I believe the marijuana is from the earth, and I know it has several medicinal benefits,
Right.
which have been proven and documented. Simply Google it.
Right. Right.
So when my passengers were in my vehicle smoking and offering to me, it's like the peace pipe with the Indians.
Right, right.
It would be rude not to smoke with your guests.
Right.
They take offense.
Yeah.
When you smoke with the person or have a drink with the person, a different bond develops with the
Right.
person.
Exactly.
So now you're not just with a driver. Yo, you're with your boy.
Right.
He smoke with y'all. Y'all
Right.
bug out. Y'all have a good
Right.
time. You chill. This is all part of the job, developing the rapport.
Right, the
Yes,
relationship,
I
right.
could have been a driver who just drove,
Right.
but I wouldn't have had people calling me time and time and time again
Right.
when you have so many transportation options in
Right.
New York City.
Yeah. So yeah.
So yes, the marijuana use and oftentimes abuse, admittedly 20 years ago,
Right.
was necessary at the time.
But you've grown from that.
Yes, that was my past. I was reckless. It's like, I'm
Right.
like a former drunk. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been sober for years.
Right. Right. So for our viewers watching, if they wanted to support you, how would they be able to go about doing so?
Well, they can, they can go to ROLLWITHRAH on Instagram, IG, or they can just go to the Rahiem Wilson page on Facebook. Rahiem Wilson. And then you can and then I'll friend you back. You send a friend request, and I'll accept that request. And tell a friend to tell a friend is what I always say.
Right.
Visit the website, rollwithrod.com. That's where you should purchase the book.
Right.
And refer everyone to rollwithrod.com. And if you have a story to tell and you believe that you want to write a book and you have any questions, reach out to me. You know what I'm saying? I love answering questions because I believe what goes around comes around.
Right.
That's why the logo on my shirt, I don't know if you can see that. It's the hands around the tire because everyone it's an all hands in approach.
Right.
We can get any problem in the world solved if we all put our hands in and roll in the right direction.
Right.
If we want to beat world hunger, we can roll with a movement that will defeat world hunger. Anything we want to do, if we all roll in the right direction, we can do that. And that's the life and the direction that Roll with Ra has taken on. It started off as just the car service. Then it became publishing and production. But now it's a movement towards positive change.
All right, well, there you have it, viewers. Roll with Ra. You can find this on Amazon, or you could go to his website. I got mine on his website. And the cool thing about that is he also personally signed it. And I was able to get buttons, magnets, really nice touch.
Oh, you like that?
Really nice touch.
Yeah, you like it, you like
I felt like, all right, yo, this dude has made it, man. I'm not just supporting a friend. I'm supporting somebody that's an actual author, a published author, and it felt good for me, man. It felt good.
Well, thank you, brother. Thank you, man. I appreciate you, man. Appreciate
No doubt,
man.
no doubt, man. So remember, guys, self-publishing, never die with your story. That's what Rahiem, he didn't do. He didn't die with his story. He got it out there.
It's your baby.
Yeah.
Got to give birth to your baby.
And if he can do it, he's no different than you. You can do it too.
We can do this together.
Exactly.
Roll with me. Roll with Ra.
So that's going to do it for this week's episode of Only Time Can Tell. I'm your host, Ken. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, and I'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.
I hope that you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you will always get an alert when a new video drops.